The U.S. election just 6 weeks away. The group Democrats Abroad is stepping up its game to encourage American citizens in Windsor, Essex to vote. 27 degrees outside with the humidex, but our string of sunny days may be coming to an end. Colette Kennedy tonight with the forecast. I'm Chris Ensing. Thanks for joining us. The Windsor Police Service will bring in outside help to deal with the systemic issues laid out in a report by the Ontario Civilian Police Commission last month. This was announced at a police board meeting this afternoon. The CBC's Jason Vio joining us now live. Jason, you spoke to the chief. What kind of help are they looking to bring in?
Well, Chris, they're looking for external experts outside of the organization for their expertise on how to attract more women, how they can better promote women, and also those from diverse communities across the city and the province and where they recruit from as well. And they say that involved just some of the 37 recommendations from the Ontario Civilian Police Commission and their report that was released last month that looked to address some of these systemic issues. And you'll remember there were allegations of a poisoned work environment here at the Windsor Police Service. That's something they looked into among other complaints by several officers. And it was an investigation that spanned more than 2 years before they finally released that report. And in my conversations with Chief Pam Mizuno today, she said that they will reassign staff or officers to achieve these recommendations by the OCPC. But she was firm today that doesn't mean hiring more people to get the job done.
The start of this year, we created a position, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity Coordinator. Currently, it's only the single officer assigned to that position. But again, once we recruit this outside expert assistance and along with Yvonne, we'll see where we're at. And if we do need any additional resources internally, we will definitely assign those in order to fulfill the recommendations by the OCPC.
Now, there's no word yet on how much this external help might cost or even a budget for that at this point. It was just approved today, and the Windsor Police Service and the board is required to report back to the OCPC on those recommendations in a year's time, but they also plan to do that at the halfway point, so 6 months. And Mayor Drew Dilkins, who's also chair of the police board, also revealed today that they will soon release a public document that outlines in green the recommendations they've completed and the ones in red that they have not.
Now, Jason, something else that came up today, police accessing the province's COVID database more than 1,800 times. You looked into this a couple weeks ago, but there was something that caught your eye today.
It came out this afternoon, something we haven't reported on or heard publicly, that an employee at the Windsor Police Service accessed that database inappropriately. And you'll remember we were first to tell you about this story earlier this month and the fact that Windsor Police accessed it more than 1,800 times. And at the time, police never mentioned this inappropriate access that we learned of today. Experts at the time told us that when police do this type of thing, it unfairly targets marginalized and racialized communities. It causes mistrust within locals and the community, and also raises serious concerns about a person's privacy. So that database contains names, addresses, and dates of birth for those who have tested positive for COVID-19 all across the province. So after learning about this improper use, police say they conducted an internal investigation. What they found was that it was a 911 communicator who accessed this database, and we knew, according to police, they were the only people who had access to this database to protect the officer's safety. And they say the employee that did do this inappropriate access searched their own name.
I'm not going to minimize any time that a member of our service breaches our policy. I think that type of conduct is always taken seriously. In this instance, it didn't affect any member of the public.
Now, Mizuno wouldn't get into the specifics about how the employee or the situation was addressed, but she says it was addressed immediately. She also said today that they limited police access to using this database early on because there were questions about the information inside that database being accurate. Chris.
Thanks, Jason. The CBC's Jason Vio live tonight. Windsor Police also updated their monthly crime statistics. Let's look at a few of them right here. They compared August 2019 to this year. There were 50 more violent crimes, totaling 275. Domestic assault cases increased by 11 to 66 cases. That's up from last year. 105 non-family assault cases reported, up 26 from last year. And then property crimes are down, a decrease of about 35%. Thefts under $5,000 also seeing a decrease. They were 294 that were reported, down 151 cases from the previous year. Premier Doug Ford has spent the past 3 days releasing parts of his government's new plan for tracking COVID-19. Tonight, CBC News has obtained a draft copy of the entire document. It reveals that even with a big increase in COVID-19 numbers, there are no plans for another widespread lockdown. The document was leaked by a provincial source to our Queen's Park reporter, Mike Crawley, who has the exclusive details.
Just how hefty is Ontario's plan for managing COVID-19 this fall? The Premier has been selling it pretty strongly.
Massive plan. It's very robust. It's jammed with items. If we just ram it down, on the table and just start rolling it all out, it's not going to be absorbed by the people out there.
Counting the cover, the draft plan obtained by CBC News is 21 pages long. It shows how a small, moderate, or large second wave of the pandemic would affect the province. But no matter how severe the second wave turns out to be, the plan recommends targeted closures rather than another lockdown or taking Ontario back to stage 2.
We're doing all these measures to make sure we can keep the economy moving forward. We aren't at that point right now. But again, everything's on the table.
The big ticket item in the plan is nearly $1.4 billion on a range of public health measures, such as more testing capacity and preventing the spread of the virus. There's also nearly $500 million to help hospitals cope with a surge in patients, almost $300 million to reduce backlogs in surgeries, MRIs, and X-rays, and $30 million to handle outbreaks in schools and long-term care. The government isn't revealing the whole document until next week.
Today, CBC News reports that they have a copy of a plan which is entirely incomplete, despite us being in the midst of the second wave.
Doug Ford has had months to be ready for this moment, and he has failed, and failed badly.
The plan admits Ontario's hospitals are once again becoming overcrowded. It proposes clearing hundreds more beds to make way for a rise in patient numbers, whether from the flu or COVID-19. To tackle the backlog for medical procedures, the plan calls for private clinics to do publicly funded surgeries, as well as MRIs and X-rays. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
3 new cases of COVID-19 here in Windsor, Essex. And news today about testing. Ontario has new guidelines about who should be going for a test. And this coming as testing centres see long lines in other parts of the province, but not in Windsor, Essex.
You have to focus on the people that need a test because of their jobs or if they've been around someone that tested positive.
A shift in the provincial testing strategy following the bleak picture painted by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
We're on the brink of a fall that could be much worse than the spring.
So, new guidelines for who should get a test in Ontario. Anyone showing symptoms, someone who has a close contact of a confirmed case, and anyone living or working somewhere experiencing an outbreak. It comes with a promise that no one will be turned away, but a strong ask that people prioritize following scenes like these at centres in cities with high daily caseloads, putting pressure on provincial labs.
This past week, we have seen that the turnaround time to receive the test results is taking a bit longer.
On average, 700 people in Windsor, Essex get tested every day. A quarter of them see results in 24 hours, but nearly 20% of people getting tested are having to wait 2 days to find out results. Is that something that you're concerned about at all?
No, we've been working with our London partners very closely. If there's a clinical urgency and a phone call is made, we can usually prioritize it.
A drive-by assessment centers locally, little to no lines. New daily cases, not as high as they once were. A community continually called a hotspot for COVID-19, experiencing a wave of calm.
If I had to put a grade on how Windsor Essex did, it would be an A for sure. Obviously we could have done some things better to give us an A+.
Now, those extra marks where lessons were learned. In weeks, thousands of migrant workers will come to Windsor and Essex to work at local farms.
I think that there's been a tremendous learning curve for everyone involved in that program and getting things set up safely for those workers.
And so, the message from health officials for folks about to enter the 8th month of a global pandemic.
I think our entire community needs to be applauded for their efforts in helping to protect the vulnerable people of our communities, but also the health system itself. And I think we saw remarkable efforts to reduce risk of transmission in the first few months. I think what's different now is that we're dealing with a different psychological entity, which is just that pandemic fatigue. And I think you're feeling it, I'm feeling it. Everybody wants to be back to normal, and I think we need to remember that this is not normal. Unfortunately, we continue need to think about things as whether they're necessary or unnecessary.
You heard from the Prime Minister there. He outlined the Liberal agenda in yesterday's throne speech, including a promise to build a national child care program. Jill Thompson is a single mom in Windsor and says it sounds like a great idea. She's just hoping for follow-through.
I'd love a robust child care program. I'd also love better job security and higher paying jobs, so that people are going to go back to work and can afford to spend money on things, but shouldn't spend the money all on childcare. So if that's what's going to happen, bring it on. But I think we've heard that a couple times, so I'm somewhat wary. It's been very difficult since COVID, like it has been for everybody, but specifically for a single parent. Trying to find affordable childcare throughout the summer, it was almost non-existent. So now the first day my child started school is the first day that I went back to work.
Now, she had to put work on hold during the pandemic to look after her daughter, a combination of limited access to affordable childcare and fears around COVID-19. Now that she's working again, she's happy that her daughter's childcare is subsidized. An early child care center in Windsor says a national child care program is truly needed to make it affordable for all parents.
The Prime Minister didn't say in his speech, which I was disappointed, was he didn't make any comment, in terms of the low wages that early childhood teachers receive. And that needs to be addressed too, because we need to be able to pay them higher wages. It'll help with recruitment and retention. And that, also adds to the quality of your program.
She says the extension of the wage subsidy program until next summer will be a big help to the child care centers, saying that the pandemic took a toll on Delta Chi childhood centers, all of them closing temporarily in March. Now, nearly most of them open again at about 50% capacity with safety precautions in place. American voters in southwestern Ontario could make a big difference in a key state in the upcoming election in the United States. Thousands of Michiganders live in our area. The last election won by around 10,000 votes. Now that has the group Democrats Abroad mobilizing their efforts here. Jacob Barker has more.
Well, with the U.S. election hitting a fever pitch on the other side of the Detroit River in Michigan, on this side, some are equally as fired up, especially when it comes to the Democratic Party.
Well, I'm definitely going to vote for Biden, and not because he's a Democrat. I don't vote by party. I vote by conscience.
As a healthcare provider and observing what things have been going on over the last number of years, I'm pretty solidly in the Democratic camp.
According to the U.S. Department of Defense, there are about 620,000 Americans living here in Canada able to cast ballots, the most in the world. But in the last election, fewer than 6% of them actually did. So in states with tight races, that means the Canadian vote could make a big difference.
Congresspeople and senators and even a couple of governors credit the numerical numbers delivered by Democrats abroad for their victory.
Democrats abroad believe that the significant number of Michiganders here in southwestern Ontario can help make a difference in the upcoming election. And so they're investing in things like ads on buses, as well as in newspapers and on the radio.
We believe that if we can rally them and secure their votes, that they can truly contribute to making a difference.
They're even bringing in some big guns to help get out the vote.
Hey, Americans in Canada, this is your moment. This is your time. You have the opportunity to vote.
Some voters here are waiting for their ballots to arrive. They say mailing them back quickly is key.
The issues happening with the U.S. Post Office is something that if you're going to vote early. Don't wait till the last minute.
Donald Trump did carry Michigan in the last election by a very narrow margin, but this time around, the CBC poll tracker says that the state is leaning Democrat. I did reach out to the Republicans overseas who say they're not overly focused on voters in this region right now, but with a little more than a month left, there could be some twists ahead, and the votes from here could make all the difference. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
Family, friends, and bystanders of violent attacks on Windsor youth gathered last night in memory of their loved ones. They want action from the justice system.
11 years ago, April 8th, 2009, Victoria was abducted after school, driven to Mount Forest, raped and murdered. My main support of being here is to help a lot of these victims realize that they have a voice. When it comes to the correctional system and the injustices going on and full sentences, like life sentences, life should mean life.
It was September 8th that he was shot of 2018, and he passed away on September 10th, 2018. The trial actually hasn't been set, and they're saying it's going to be in 2022, so it'll have taken 4 years to finally even get that, because the preliminary hearing was set for May. Due to COVID, it was canceled, so now it's put off till early next year just for the preliminary hearing, and then the trial will be set after. He's just an accused right now, but he's sitting at home eating dinner with his family every night on house arrest. I just think it's unfair. My son is in the ground right now, and he's just sitting in his house surrounded by his family. Definitely a lot more has to be done. I think this is a good start, though, bringing awareness, people getting together to remember the people that we've lost.
More now to a story that we first reported last week on the sudden removal of the chief of Caldwell First Nation in Leamington. Mary Duckworth with a statement today. She's denying the allegations made by the Council of Caldwell First Nation. In a private memo to its membership and obtained by CBC News, the council says that Chief Duckworth has requested to be paid the sum of over $470,000. In her demands, if she receives this amount, she says that she will resign as chief, not run in the next election. Council called that highly improper. Duckworth says she wants to clear her name and sent this statement to us. Council has made serious allegations that I flatly deny, and the recent release of a memo to the membership, which was also leaked to the media, is not only defamatory, it has taken a very big emotional toll. Duckworth and her lawyer declined a request for an interview, saying that she's weighing her legal options. Requests for interviews with Caldwell First Nation council members, Acting Chief Robin Perkins, and administration were not returned. According to the memo, since the 2021 elections are just 4 months away, council decided that there will not be a by-election. Taking a look outside here as we enjoy the sunny days at the start of fall, but the rainy days are right around the corner. Colette Kennedy with the full forecast next. Now, as if the Rocky Mountain region wasn't beautiful enough, fall's arrived and the larches have changed color. Now, if like me, you're wondering what a larch is, just take a look at this here. It's these striking trees that actually shed their needles in the fall, but not before they turn this vibrant golden color. Every year, hordes of hikers, they swarm the mountains to try and take in this sight. Larch season started early this year because of the hot and the dry weather. And joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Hot and dry seems to describe the week we've been through so far.
I know, isn't this incredible? Here we are a few days into fall, and the last few weeks of summer were like fall, and now the first bit of fall is like summer. That's okay. It's often like this as we're, kind of going in from one season into the next, and here we are. Current temperatures, it's 24 degrees in Windsor. We've got 22 in Chatham-Kent, by the way, Leamington, in between. 23 degrees right now. We are seeing those leaves changing over, and certainly the further north you go, the more colorful it becomes. So there's not a lot we can do right now with COVID, so sometimes a nice little drive is something to do, so there are lots of colors that you can see. I do want to talk a little bit about the humidex because there's not much here, right? The humidity today, not too bad. Now, towards the weekend, we are going to be seeing that having an impact, so we will have more humidity coming in through Saturday and Sunday, but no storms for southwestern Ontario. In fact, some of the activity, well, there's lots well to the west, some of the activity has actually been over towards the Bruce Peninsula, as was forecast over towards the Niagara region as well, but things looking very good through the southwest of Ontario, and that carries on through tonight. A little patchy fog, is that possible again tonight? Yes, there is a risk for that, so some of that can kind of carry on into the early morning hours before the sunshine burns that off, and there will be sunshine to burn it off. Again, not just through Friday, but into Saturday as well, and things are looking fairly good in terms of the precipitation into Sunday. I can't promise there won't be the cloud cover. It is looking like we're going to see some of that certainly for the second half of the weekend, but we may be able to hold that rain off until later into Sunday night or even into Monday. Now, overnight tonight, these temperatures, these readings really mild for our overnight lows as well, but have a look at tomorrow. Daytime highs, I didn't want to go with the 27. I don't know if we're going to get there tomorrow, but looking like we're likely going to get to 26 for our high, and throughout the region, that's what I've gone with. You can see the 26s have it for the daytime highs. As we look at the 5-day forecast, by Saturday, yes, a little more humid, and also we may be able to take that temperature up to 27. Sunday, a lot more cloud cover building in, and it is Sunday night into Monday. It's not just the precipitation that's coming in. It does, yes, have an impact on what's going to be going on. Much cooler air mass moves in. Monday, you notice the transition. It's really going to be Tuesday and Wednesday. Just a complete dive on those temperatures going not just to seasonal, Chris, but going down below seasonal for those daytime highs.
That's okay. We've got a good weekend to enjoy first.
Woo! Do we ever?
Thanks, Colette.
You got it.
Now, this was supposed to be an Olympic year, but COVID-19 forced those plans to change. An update on what could happen next. Protesters took to the streets in several U.S. cities, including Detroit last night, after a grand jury chose not to indict the police officers who fired the shots that killed Breonna Taylor. The black woman died during a botched drug raid in Louisville last March.
We tired of y'all doing this to us. You're doing too many. Enough is enough.
Violence broke out at several of the protests, including the one in Louisville. Gunshots heard when police closed in on protesters, ordering the crowd to disperse. 2 police officers were wounded. Only one of the 3 officers who burst into Taylor's apartment in March faces charges, and they're unrelated to the young woman's death. Brett Hankinson faces 3 counts of wanton endangerment for firing his weapon into the homes of Taylor's neighbors. COVID-19 continues to cast a shadow over Tokyo's plans to finally host the delayed 2020 Olympic Games next year. But the resumption of some major international sporting events, including the Tour de France, is being hailed as a sign that the Games will proceed.
We could and can see that sport is coming back, which show to us and show to the world we can organize safe sport events even without a vaccine.
The IOC and Japanese officials and organizers are working toward a late July 2021 start for the postponed 2020 Summer Games. To cover the billion-dollar cost of the delay, organizers want to see venues at full capacity with no travel restrictions. About 11,000 athletes are expected to be in Tokyo for the Olympics. With the Beijing 2022 Winter Games slated just months later, Tokyo organizers say that further postponement is impossible. It's 6:29 p.m. and that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Power and Politics is up next. We're going to join that already in progress. Thanks for watching. Make sure you and your family have yourselves a wonderful night tonight.